The massive space station hung in the darkness like a giant metal city. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports. Inside the main meeting hall, creatures of all shapes and sizes filled the seats. Some had 4 arms, others breathed gas instead of air. Some looked like giant insects, while others seemed made of living crystal. Captain Jake Morrison sat with his small group of humans near the back of the room. He wore his best uniform, but it looked plain next to the fancy clothes and armor of the other species. Next to him sat Lisa Carter, a smart woman who studied alien technology. On his other side was Rick Sullivan, a tough military man who always watched for danger. The meeting was supposed to be about dividing up new areas of space. Each species wanted the best planets and trade routes. But as Jake listened, he realized the meeting was really about something else. It was about putting humans in their place. A tall alien with skin like blue crystal stood up. His name was Zexthil, and he spoke for the Zephyrian Empire. When he talked, his voice sounded like breaking glass, but the translation machines made it easy to understand. "Why do we even let these soft creatures speak?" Zexthil asked, pointing at the humans. "They barely know how to travel between stars. Their ships are slow and weak. They have no real weapons, no advanced science. They are like children playing with toys." Many aliens in the room laughed. The sound was awful. Clicks, hisses, and strange musical notes all mixed together. Jake felt his face grow hot with anger. But he stayed calm. He had been told to listen and learn, not to start fights. Another alien stood up. This one looked like a giant bug with sharp claws and teeth. His name was Gorthic, and he led the Krell armies. When he spoke, his mouth parts clicked together. "The crystal skin is right," Gorthic said. "Humans are only good for simple work. They can mine rocks and grow food, but they should not have their own planets. They should work for us, like pets or tools." More laughter filled the room. A floating blob of green gas in a clear suit spoke next. "Their technology is hundreds of years behind ours. They still use chemical rockets like ancient primitives. They know nothing about the higher dimensions of space." Lisa Carter was looking at a small device in her hand. It was beeping softly and showing strange numbers. She leaned over to Jake and whispered, "Captain, I'm getting very odd readings. There's some kind of energy here that I've never seen before." Jake looked at the device. The numbers were jumping around like crazy. "What kind of energy?" "I don't know," Lisa said quietly. "It's not coming from any of the alien ships. It's something else." Rick Sullivan noticed their quiet talk. "Problem?" he asked in a low voice. "Maybe," Jake said. "Lisa's picking up unknown energy signatures." Rick's hand moved closer to his weapon. It was just a habit. There were no real threats here. But something about this meeting felt wrong to him. The alien leaders kept talking about humans like they weren't even there. They made jokes about human ships being slow. They laughed about human weapons being weak. They said human science was like a baby trying to understand math. "I say we give them the worst systems," said another alien. This one looked like a snake. "With arms. The places with dead planets and dangerous asteroids. Let them learn their place." "Yes," agreed Zexthil. "The outer rim has many empty systems. Systems with no value. Perfect for a species with no value." Jake wanted to speak up. He wanted to tell them they were wrong about humans. But his orders were clear. Watch, listen, and don't cause trouble. Earth's government wanted to know what the other species really thought about humans. Now he was learning, and he didn't like it. Lisa's device was beeping faster now. "Captain, these readings are getting stronger. It's like something is building up energy." "Can you tell where it's coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa looked around the room carefully. "It seems to be ... everywhere and nowhere. Like it's coming from a place that doesn't quite exist." The meeting went on for hours. Every species got to make demands about territory. The tall bird-like aliens wanted systems with hot stars. The rock creatures wanted planets with heavy gravity. The gas beings wanted areas near Nebula's. When it was finally the humans' turn to speak, Jake stood up. The room got quiet, but not in a respectful way. It was the kind of quiet that came before laughter. The human colonies would like to request. Jake began. Request? Gorthic interrupted with a harsh clicking sound. You are in no position to request anything. You will take what we give you. And we are feeling generous, added Zexthul. We will give you 12 systems in the Outer Rim. Systems that no one else wants. Jake looked at the star map they showed him. The systems were far from trade routes. The planets were mostly dead rocks or gas giants with poisonous air. It was like being given the worst land in a country, technically property, but worthless. These systems are dangerous, Jake said. There are pirates and raiders in that area. Our colonies would be defenseless. Then maybe you should build better defenses, laughed another alien. Or hire someone stronger to protect you. More laughter filled the room. Rick Sullivan's jaw was tight with anger. Lisa Carter was staring at her device with worry. The energy. Readings were now so high that the device was shaking in her hands. The meeting finally ended with humans getting exactly what the aliens wanted to give them. The worst territory in the galaxy. As the other species filed out, they made jokes about humans being servants and slaves. Some wondered out loud if humans would survive at all in their new territory. Jake packed up his papers with steady hands, even though he was furious inside. Lisa was still studying her strange readings. Rick was watching the aliens leave, memorizing faces and counting weapons. Well, Jake said quietly, now we know what they really think of us. Captain, Lisa said, her voice worried. Whatevers. Causing these energy readings, it's not natural. Someone or something is using technology that's more advanced than anything in this room. Jake looked around the emptying chamber. One of the alien species? No, Lisa said. This is something else. Something that doesn't want to be detected. As they left the station, Jake wondered if humanity's enemies had just made a very big mistake. The universe was full of surprises, and sometimes the weakest-looking creature was the most dangerous one of all. 3 months passed after the meeting at the space station. The alien attacks began exactly as the human leaders had feared they would. The Krell and Zephyrian fleets worked together, hitting human colonies one by one. They destroyed research, stations, mining facilities, and even peaceful farming settlements. The attacks were brutal and complete. The aliens didn't just want to defeat humans. They wanted to wipe them out entirely. Ships full of families trying to escape were shot down. Surrender offers were ignored. It was clear that the galaxy's major powers had decided humanity had no right to exist. On New Terra, the human capital world, President Maria Rodriguez sat in an emergency meeting with her top military leaders. The news was bad and getting worse every day. Admiral Tony Blake, head of the Space Defense Force, stood at a large screen showing the latest battle reports. We've lost 43 colonies in the past month, Admiral Blake said, his voice heavy with grief. The Henderson system fell yesterday. The Jung colony was evacuated just in time, but we lost all the infrastructure. General Amy Foster, who commanded the ground forces, added her own grim report. Our conventional weapons can't match theirs. A single Krell destroyer can take out 3 of our best ships. Their armor is too thick, their shields too strong. President Rodriguez listened to the reports with a calm face, but inside she was making a difficult decision. For over a century, humanity had kept its greatest secret. Now it was time to reveal the truth, even to her own military leaders. Follow me, she said simply. She led them through the government building to an elevator that most people didn't know existed. It went down, far underground, past levels marked with numbers that didn't make sense. Finally, it stopped at a door marked only with symbols. President Rodriguez placed her hand on a scanner. The heavy door opened with a sound like a bank vault. Beyond it was a tunnel that stretched into darkness. They walked for 10 minutes through corridors lined with metal and strange glowing panels. Finally, they reached another door. This one was even thicker than the first. Beyond it was a room that made the military leaders stop and stare. It was huge, filled with computers and screens, showing star maps that looked wrong somehow. The stars seemed to move and shift in patterns. That hurt the eyes to watch. A man in a white coat approached them. He was thin and had gray hair, but his eyes were bright with intelligence. "President Rodriguez," he said with a slight bow. "I assume you're here to activate the project?" "Dr. Kevin Park," the president said to her confused military leaders, "is the head of Project Phantom Gate, a project that has been running in secret for 73 years. Admiral Blake looked around the room with amazement. "What is this place?" Dr. Park smiled, but it was a sad smile. "This is where we keep humanity's real technology. The technology we've been hiding from the galaxy." He led them to a large screen that showed something impossible. It looked like space, but wrong. The stars were different colors and strange. Shapes moved between them that couldn't be real ships. 73 years ago, Dr. Park began, human miners in the Tau Ceti system found something that changed everything. They were drilling deep into an asteroid when their equipment broke through into ... somewhere else. The screen changed to show old video footage. Miners in spacesuits were staring at a hole in rock that seemed to lead into another universe. Through the hole, they could see stars and space, but it was clearly not the space they knew. "We called it a dimensional rift," Dr. Park continued. "A crack between our reality and another one. What we found on the other side was the seventh realm, a place where the laws of physics work differently." General Foster stepped closer to the WHO. "Screen. Differently how?" "Time moves faster there," Dr. Park explained. "Much faster. 1 day in our world equals about 3 months in the seventh realm, and energy is more concentrated there. Things that are impossible in our dimension become easy." He pressed more buttons, and the screen showed images that made no sense. Massive. Structures that seemed to be built from solid light. Ships that looked more grown than built, with smooth curves and surfaces that shifted like living skin. "We built research stations in the seventh realm," Dr. Park said. "At first, just small ones. Scientists like Dr. Helen Stone and Commander Greg Butler volunteered to spend years there, studying how the different physics worked. Admiral Blake was starting to understand. Years there, but only days here." "Exactly. We could do decades of research and development while the galaxy thought we were just struggling with basic technology. We learned how to build things that the other species can't even imagine." The screen showed more images. Weapons that bent space itself. Engines that could step between dimensions. Armor that could phase in and out of reality. "The USS Leviathan," Dr. Park said with pride, "is our masterpiece. A ship built entirely in the seventh realm using technologies that simply don't exist in normal space." President Rodriguez watched her military leaders absorb this information. For over 70 years, humanity has been playing weak while growing strong. We let the other species think we were primitives while we built an empire in another dimension. "General," Foster found her voice first, "why keep it secret? Why let them attack our colonies?" "Because," President Rodriguez said firmly, "we needed to know their true intentions. Now we do. They don't just want to rule us. They want to destroy us completely. That changes everything." Dr. Park brought up new images on the screen. The Leviathan was massive, easily 5 times the size of the largest human ship the military leaders had ever seen. But its size wasn't the most impressive thing. The ship seemed to shift and change as they watched, like it existed in several dimensions at once. The crew has been training in the 7th realm for subjective decades, Dr. Park explained. Commander Steve Hardy has been overseeing the final preparations. The ship is ready for combat operations. Admiral Blake studied the technical displays. What are its capabilities? It can phase between dimensions, making it impossible to hit with conventional weapons. Its main guns fire dimensional torpedoes that ignore shields and armor. It can open rifts in space to allow instant travel across the galaxy. The room was quiet as everyone absorbed what they were learning. Humanity wasn't the weak, primitive species that the galaxy believed. They were potentially the most advanced civilization in known space. There's more, Dr. Park said quietly. The Leviathan isn't alone. We've been building a fleet in the 7th realm. Smaller ships, but all using the same advanced technology. President Rodriguez turned to her military leaders. The alien coalition thinks they're hunting helpless prey. They're about to learn that they've awakened something they can't understand or defeat. General Foster was looking at personnel files on one of the screens. Names and faces of people she'd never heard of, but who had ranks and positions that should have made them famous. These people, she said, pointing at the files. Where have they been? Living and working in the 7th realm, Dr. Park answered. Nancy Wells designed the dimensional drive systems. Dan Torres developed our new combat tactics. Sandra Mitchell created medical treatments for dimensional exposure. They've been building our secret defense for decades of subjective time. Admiral Blake was studying the fleet composition charts. How many ships? 47 combat vessels, Dr. Park said, all invisible to normal sensors, all armed with weapons that can destroy entire fleets. President Rodriguez made her decision. Contact Commander Hardy in the 7th realm. Tell him it's time for Operation Emergence. Dr. Park nodded and began working at a communication console that looked like nothing the military leaders had ever seen. Strange symbols flowed across its surface, and the air around seemed to shimmer. Commander Hardy, Dr. Park said into a device that seemed to whisper his words into another dimension. The President has authorized Operation Emergence. Prepare the fleet for dimensional translation. A voice came back that sounded like it was speaking from the bottom of an ocean. Understood, Dr. Park. The Leviathan and escort vessels are ready. We'll await the signal. President Rodriguez looked at her military leaders, who were still trying to process everything they'd learned. Gentlemen, lady, humanity's about to stop hiding. The galaxy mocked us and tried to destroy us. Now they'll learn what human patience and human ingenuity can accomplish when we're pushed too far. On the screens around them, displays showed the positions of alien fleets closing in on humanity's remaining strongholds. Soon, those fleets would face something they couldn't imagine, an enemy that had been preparing for this moment for over 70 years. The age of humanity hiding in the shadows was about to end. In the 7th realm, reality worked by different rules. The stars were closer together and burned with colors that didn't exist in normal space. Energy flowed like water, and matter could be shaped by thought and will. It was here that humanity had built its secret empire. Commander Steve Hardy stood on the bridge of the USS Leviathan, watching the final preparations for war. Through the massive viewing window, he could see the other ships of the hidden fleet. They moved through the strange dimension like living things, their hulls shifting and changing as they absorbed energy from the realm itself. The Leviathan was beautiful in a way that normal ships could never be. Its hull seemed to be made of liquid metal that flowed and moved. Weapons that looked like they grew from the ship's body pointed in all directions. The engines didn't burn fuel. They fed on the raw energy of the seventh realm itself. Final systems. Check complete, Commander, reported Nancy Wells from the engineering station. She had been working in the seventh realm for over 30 subjective years, designing the ship's incredible engines. Her hair was gray now, but her mind was sharper than ever. All weapon systems ready, added Dan Torres from Tactical. He was younger than Nancy, but had spent 20 years of subjective time learning how to fight with dimensional technology. The reality torpedoes are loaded and armed. Dr. Sandra Mitchell looked up from her medical station. Dimensional exposure treatments are prepared for the crew. Everyone's ready for translation back to normal space. Commander Hardy nodded. These people were his family now. They had worked together for decades of subjective time, building the fleet that would save humanity. But they had also missed decades of real time. When they returned to normal space, they would find that friends and family had aged while they stayed young. Signal from Dr. Park, announced the communications officer. Operation Emergence is authorized. We're to wait for the final signal. Hardy looked around the bridge. These men and women had sacrificed everything to build humanity's secret defense. Now it was time to see if their work would be enough dot through the dimensional viewing screens. He could see normal space. The alien fleets were moving toward humanity's last strongholds, like predators closing in for the kill. Soon, those predators would become prey dot in normal space. The situation was getting desperate. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after the space station meeting, commanded the defense of the Tau Ceti system. His fleet of 30 human ships faced over 200 alien vessels, approaching from 3 directions. Admiral, reported his communications. Officer, the Krell commander is demanding our surrender. Morrison looked at the tactical display. His ships were outnumbered 7-1. Their weapons were weaker, their armor thinner, their shields less powerful. By every logical measure, this was a hopeless fight. Tell the Krell commander, Morrison said calmly, that humanity doesn't surrender. His crew looked at him with concern. They knew they were going to die, but they also knew their duty. Every minute they held the aliens here was another minute for civilians to evacuate. Sir, said Lisa Carter, now his science officer, I'm still detecting those strange energy readings. They're much stronger now. Morrison remembered the readings from the space station meeting. Something had been building power for months. He had reported it to Earth, but never received an explanation. Can you localize the source yet? It's everywhere and nowhere, Lisa said, frustrated. Like it's coming from a place that exists next to our space, but not in it. The alien fleet moved closer. The massive ships looked like moving cities, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. At their head was Gorthic's new flagship, even larger than the one humanity had seen before. On New Terra, the ground forces prepared for invasion. General Amy Foster stood on the walls of the capital city, watching the sky for the first signs of enemy ships. Evacuation transports were still lifting off, carrying civilians to hidden bunkers deep underground. General, reported one of her. Officers, alien landing craft detected. Krell shock troops, estimated 50,000 soldiers. Foster nodded grimly. Her ground forces numbered only 10,000, and they were armed with weapons that were no match for Krell battle armor. But they would fight anyway, because that's what humans did dot in the seventh realm. Commander Hardy received the news that the final battles had begun. On his screens, he could see Admiral Morrison's fleet engaging the alien forces. Human ships exploded in bright flashes as alien weapons tore them apart. Commander, said Nancy Wells quietly, permission to speak freely? Always. Nancy, are we doing the right thing? We could have revealed ourselves years ago. Saved those colonies. Saved those ships. Hardy was quiet for a moment. It was a question that haunted all of them. If we had revealed ourselves early, the aliens would have united against us. All of them, not just the Krell and Zephyrians. They would have studied our technology, found weaknesses, prepared countermeasures. He gestured to the viewing screen showing the battle. This way, they think they're fighting primitive humans. They have no idea what's coming. Dr. Sandra Mitchell spoke up from her station. The psychological impact will be devastating for them. They've built their entire sense of superiority on the belief that humans are weak. When that belief is shattered, they'll break, Dan Torres finished. Their whole alliance is based on shared contempt for humanity. When they see what we really are, that alliance will crumble. The tactical displays showed Admiral Morrison's fleet down to 15 ships. The Krell were pressing their attack, confident of victory. On New Terra, the first Krell landing craft were entering the atmosphere. "Signal from Earth," announced the communications officer. "President Rodriguez has authorized immediate emergence. We are to translate to normal space at the moment of maximum enemy commitment." Commander Hardy stood up. This was the moment they had prepared for across decades of subjective time. All stations, prepare for dimensional translation. Target coordinates, New Terra system, lunar orbit. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Nancy Wells's hands flew over the engineering controls, building power in the dimensional engines. Dan Torres armed the reality-warping weapons. Dr. Mitchell activated the medical systems that would help the crew survive the translation. "Translation field building," Nancy reported. "Dimensional anchor points established." Around the Leviathan, the other ships of the Secret Fleet took their positions. The Phantom Strike, commanded by Captain Lavra Bennett, moved into formation. The Dimensional Sword, under Captain Pete Morgan, powered up its exotic weapons. All ships report ready for emergence, Dan Torres announced. Commander Hardy looked around the bridge one more time. When they translated back to normal space, everything would change. Humanity would no longer be the galaxy's weak victim. They would be its most powerful predator. "Commence Operation Emergence," he ordered. The Leviathan began to phase between dimensions. Reality twisted around the ship as it prepared to step from the seventh realm into normal space. The hull shimmered and became translucent, then solid again. On the tactical screens, Commander Hardy could see the battle for New Terra reaching its climax. Admiral Morrison's fleet was down to 8 ships. Krell landing craft were descending toward the planet's surface. The alien commanders were broadcasting their final victory messages. "Translation in 30 seconds, Nancy Wells announced. Commander Hardy opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Hardy. For 70 years, humanity has hidden in the shadows while building our strength. Today, we step into the light. Today, the galaxy learns what human patience and human determination can achieve." The dimensional engines reached full power. Space began to tear open around the fleet. "Translation in 10 seconds, Nancy reported. Commander Hardy smiled. Soon, the aliens who had mocked humanity would learn the most important lesson in the galaxy. Never underestimate the species that conquered their own world before they even reached the stars. 5 seconds. Reality split open like a wound. Through the tear, normal space was visible, and the shocked faces of alien crews who suddenly detected massive energy signatures appearing from nowhere. Translation complete. The USS Leviathan emerged from the seventh realm like an angel of death, followed by the most advanced fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The real war was about to begin. The space around New Terra had become a graveyard. Burning human ships drifted in the darkness, their hulls torn open by alien weapons. Admiral Morrison's fleet was down to 5 ships, and those were badly damaged. The Krell and Zephyrian forces pressed their attack with ruthless efficiency. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Morrison watched his tactical display with grim determination. His ship shook as another wave of alien fire struck the shields. Warning lights flashed red across all the control panels. "Admiral," reported his weapons officer, "the New Hope just lost main power. The Liberty is venting atmosphere." Morrison nodded. He had known this would be a one-way mission when it started. "Signal all remaining ships. We fight until the end." On the planet's surface, Krell landing craft roared through the atmosphere like metal meteors. General Foster's ground forces fired their weapons at the incoming ships, but their guns might as well have been throwing rocks. The Krell armor was too thick, their shields too strong. "General," one of her officers reported, "enemy troops will reach the capital in 6 hours. Foster checked her weapon and looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, Admiral Morrison was fighting. A hopeless battle to buy them time. She wouldn't waste his sacrifice dot in space. Gorthic's massive flagship moved toward the planet like a mountain of metal and death. The Krell commander was broadcasting victory messages to his fleet, telling them that the extermination of humanity was almost complete. "Weak humans," Gorthic's voice echoed across all communication channels. "Your ships burn like paper. Your weapons are toys." Today, a galaxy learns what happens to inferior species. Zephyrian Admiral Kethmer added his own message, his crystal voice cutting through space. "Humanity was a mistake that we will now correct. Your colonies will become our mining stations. Your people will serve as our workers, if we allow any to live." But Lisa Carter, monitoring her instruments on Morrison's flagship, saw something that made her gasp. "Admiral!" Massive energy buildup detected near the moon. Morrison looked at her readings. The energy levels were impossible, higher than a star going supernova. Source? Unknown. It's like reality itself is tearing open. On the alien ships, sensor operators were reporting the same impossible readings. Energy signatures that their instruments couldn't properly measure. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting near New Terra's moon. Then it happened. A crack appeared in space itself, starting as a thin line of blazing light. The crack widened, revealing glimpses of another dimension beyond, a realm of impossible colors and shifting energies. The tear in reality spread like a wound in the fabric of the universe. From this otherworldly portal, something emerged that made every alien in the fleet stop and stare in shock. The USS Leviathan phased into normal space like a ship from a dream. It was massive, over 3 kilometers long, but its size wasn't what made it terrifying. The ship seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, its hull shifting between states of matter. Weapons that looked grown rather than built extended from its sides. The entire vessel pulsed with energies that shouldn't exist. Captain Alex Turner, the Leviathan's commander, stood on the bridge and looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet spread before them like a pack of wolves that had just discovered they were facing a dragon. "Communications," Turner ordered. "Open a channel to all ships in the system." His voice carried across space on frequencies that the alien ships couldn't block or jam. "This is Captain Alex Turner of the United Earthship Leviathan. You wanted to see what humanity is truly capable of. You mocked our technology and dismissed our potential. Now you will learn why we remained hidden." On Gorthic's flagship, the Krell commander stared at the human vessel with disbelief. His sensors couldn't properly analyze the ship. Its energy. Readings were off every scale his instruments had. "Destroy that ship," Gorthic roared. "All vessels, concentrate fire on the human vessel." Over 50 alien warships turned their weapons toward the Leviathan. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion torpedoes enough firepower to vaporize a small moon converged on the mysterious human ship. But the Leviathan didn't raise conventional shields. Instead, Captain Turner gave a simple order. Phase. Shift. The ship became translucent, existing partially in the seventh realm. The alien weapons passed harmlessly through it, like attacking a ghost. Plasma beams that should have melted the hull instead passed through empty space. The alien fleet stopped. Firing, confusion spreading through their ranks. How could they fight an enemy they couldn't touch? Our turn, Captain Turner said calmly. Tactical. Target the Krell flagship. Fire one-dimensional torpedo. Dan Torres smiled as he pressed the firing controls. Torpedo away. The weapon that emerged from the Leviathan didn't look like any torpedo the galaxy had ever seen. It was a sphere of twisted space-time that moved through reality like a knife through cloth. It phased through Gorthic's shields as if they weren't. There, passed through his armor like it was made of air dot when the dimensional torpedo struck the flagship's core. It didn't explode in the traditional sense. Instead, it restructured the very atoms of the ship, compressing them into a sphere of superdense matter. The massive Krell dreadnought simply collapsed in on itself, crushed by its own gravity. Gorthic, the seemingly invincible Krell commander, died in an instant as his flagship became a ball of compressed metal no larger than a house. The alien fleet watched in horror as their most powerful ship was destroyed by a weapon they couldn't understand. On every bridge, sensor operators reported the same impossible readings. The human ship was using technology that shouldn't exist. But the Leviathan wasn't alone. More rifts began opening in space around the alien fleet. From each tear in reality, another human ship emerged. These vessels were smaller than the Leviathan, but they shared the same impossible technology. Ships with names like Phantom Strike and Dimensional. Sword took positions around the alien formation. Captain Lara Bennett, commanding the Phantom Strike, opened communications with her sister ships. All vessels, this is Bennett. Let's show them what 70 years of secret development can accomplish. The human fleet demonstrated capabilities that violated everything the aliens thought they knew about physics. Ships phased in and out of reality, appearing behind enemy vessels to fire weapons that ignored shields and armor. Gravity cannons reached out across space to disable entire squadrons without destroying them. Admiral Morrison, watching from his damaged flagship, could barely believe what he was seeing. The aliens who had been winning moments before were now helpless against technology beyond their comprehension. Lisa, he said to his science officer, are you recording all of this? Yes, sir, Lisa Carter replied, her eyes wide with amazement. The energy readings are incredible. These ships are using some kind of dimensional technology that we never knew existed. On the planet's surface, General Foster watched the sky as alien landing craft suddenly turned around and fled back to space. Her communications officer was receiving messages from the human fleet above. General, the officer reported, we're being contacted by something called the Leviathan. They say the orbital battle is under control. Foster smiled for the first time in months. Tell them we're grateful for the assistance. In space, the alien coalition was falling apart. Ships that had been confident predators minutes before were now trying to escape. But the human fleet moved around them like sharks circling wounded. Prey, Captain Turner opened another general communication channel. Alien commanders, this is Captain Turner. Your assault on humanity ends now. You have two choices: surrender or face the full power of technology you cannot comprehend. Admiral Kethmer, his crystal form flickering with fear, tried to respond. We did not know. Your species concealed your true capabilities. This changes everything. This changes nothing, Turner replied coldly. You attacked civilian colonies. You attempted genocide. The only thing that has changed is that you now face the consequences of your actions. The human fleet began to demonstrate just how advanced their technology had become. Gravity weapons reached out to disable alien ships without destroying them. Dimensional fields trapped entire squadrons in pockets of twisted spacetime. Reality itself seemed to bend to the will of the human commanders. Within an hour, the massive alien fleet that had come to destroy humanity was either captured, disabled, or fleeing in panic. The species that had mocked humans as primitive were now faced with the terrible truth. They had been fighting the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, and they never even knew it. Captain Turner looked at the tactical display showing the scattered remains of the alien fleet. "Signal Earth," he ordered. "Tell President Rodriguez that Operation Emergence is complete. The galaxy is about to learn what human patience can accomplish." The destruction of Gorthic's flagship sent shockwaves through every alien ship in the system. The mighty Krull commander, who had seemed invincible, was dead. His massive dreadnought had been compressed into a ball of metal smaller than a house. The weapon that did it was beyond anything in their technology databases. Captain Turner didn't press his attack immediately. Instead, he opened another dimensional rift, and more human ships began emerging from the seventh realm. Each vessel that appeared was a demonstration of humanity's secret power. The aliens watched in growing terror as their enemy revealed capabilities they couldn't begin to understand. The Phantom Strike, commanded by Captain Lavra Bennett, phased through a group of Zephyrian cruisers like a ghost passing through walls. The Dimensional Sword, under Captain Pete Morgan, used gravity weapons to trap an entire Krell squadron in fields of twisted spacetime. Admiral Kethmore, the Zephyrian fleet commander, watched from his bridge as his forces were systematically disabled without being destroyed. His crystal form flickered with colors that indicated extreme stress. "All ships," he broadcast to his fleet, "attempt to withdraw to safe distance." But the human ships moved faster than thought itself. They could phase between dimensions, appearing anywhere in the battlefield instantly. There was no safe distance from an enemy that could step outside reality. Captain Turner opened communications to the entire alien fleet. His voice carried authority. That came from holding absolute power over his enemies. "Alien commanders," he said calmly, "you came here to exterminate humanity. You attacked our colonies, destroyed our cities, and killed our civilians. You did this because you believed we were weak and primitive." The tactical display on the Leviathan showed the positions of every alien ship. Most were disabled or trapped in dimensional fields. The few that were still operational were fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. "You were wrong," Turner continued. "For over 70 years, humanity has been developing technology in a parallel dimension while allowing you to believe we were inferior. We could have revealed ourselves at any time. We chose to wait until you showed your true nature." On New Terra's surface, General Foster received reports that all Krell landing forces were retreating. The alien troops who had seemed unstoppable hours before were now running back to their ships in panic. President Rodriguez arrived on the planet in a transport that had emerged from the seventh realm. She had come to personally oversee the negotiations that would reshape the galaxy. As she stepped onto the surface of New Terra, she carried with her the authority to speak for the most advanced civilization in known space. In orbit, the remaining alien commanders were brought aboard the Leviathan for negotiations. They moved through the ship's corridors like prisoners, their confidence completely shattered. The technology around them was beyond their comprehension. Walls that seemed alive, lights that responded to thought, gravity that flowed like water. Admiral Kethmer entered the conference room with his remaining staff officers. General Vextai of the Nebulans floated in his containment suit, his gaseous form swirling with agitation. Commander Zethkai of the insectoid hive mind clicked his mandibles nervously. President Rodriguez sat at the head of a table that seemed to be carved from a single piece of crystallized energy. Her human advisors included Dr. Kevin Park, who had overseen the secret project, and Admiral Blake, who was still learning about his own species' hidden capabilities. "Gentlemen," President Rodriguez began, "let's discuss the new balance of power in the galaxy." Admiral Kethmer spoke first, his crystal voice shaking. "President Rodriguez, we acknowledge that humanity possesses technology far beyond our understanding. We were mistaken about your capabilities." "You were more than mistaken," Dr. Park interjected. "You attempted genocide based on the assumption that we were defenseless. That shows a fundamental flaw in your thinking." General Vextai's gaseous form shifted colors that indicated submission. "What are your terms for peace?" President Rodriguez activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy's current territorial divisions. The map redrew itself, showing new boundaries that gave humanity control over the richest systems in known space. "First," she said, "all territorial concessions forced upon humanity are reversed. We will control the resource-rich core systems that you previously claimed for yourselves." The alien delegates stared at the new map in shock. Humanity was claiming the best planets, the most valuable trade routes, the systems that every species had fought wars to control. "Second," Rodriguez continued, "the Galactic Council will be restructured. Humanity will hold the position of prime authority, with power to veto any decision that affects galactic security." Commander Zethkai clicked his mandibles in distress. "You are asking us to accept human dominance over the galaxy." "We're not asking," Admiral Blake said firmly. "We're telling you how things will be. Your fleets are disabled. Your most powerful commanders are dead. You have no choice but to accept our terms." Captain Turner's voice came through the ship's communication system. "President Rodriguez, long-range sensors are detecting additional alien fleets approaching from the outer rim. It appears word of the battle has spread." Rodriguez smiled coldly. "How many ships?" "Over 800 vessels from 15 different species. They appear to be coming to investigate what happened here." The alien delegates in the conference room looked at each other with growing despair. The other species of the galaxy were coming, drawn by reports of humanity's emergence. But instead of finding weak humans to conquer, they would face the same overwhelming technology that had crushed the Krell-Zephyrian alliance. "Perfect," Rodriguez said. "We can negotiate with all of them at once." Dr. Park brought up displays, showing the human fleet's capabilities. "We have 47 ships currently in normal space, with 200 more ready to emerge from the 7th realm if needed. Each vessel carries weapons that can disable entire fleets without destroying them." Admiral Kethmer stared at the numbers in disbelief. 200 ships? How many people do you have in this parallel dimension? "Enough," Rodriguez replied. "We've been building our forces for over 70 years of subjective time. While you thought we were struggling with basic technology, we were creating an empire in another dimension." The conference was interrupted by reports from the bridge. Captain Turner announced that the approaching alien fleets had detected the dimensional technology and were requesting immediate communications. "Put them through to the conference room," Rodriguez ordered. The holographic display filled with faces from across the galaxy. Species that had never worked together were united by their shock at what they had discovered. The proud Alterians, the warrior Draconis, the ancient Voidwalkers, all of them stared at President Rodriguez with a mixture of fear and awe. "Leaders of the galaxy," Rodriguez addressed them all, "you are witnessing the emergence of humanity from self-imposed hiding. For over 70 years, we have allowed you to believe we were primitive while we developed technology beyond your imagination." She gestured to the tactical displays, showing the disabled alien fleets around New Terra. "The Krell and Zephyrians came here to exterminate humanity. As you can see, their attempt failed completely." The alien leaders on the display looked at each other nervously. Many of them had been planning their own attacks on human territory. assuming easy victories over a weak species. The galaxy has a choice, Rodriguez continued. You can accept the new reality and work with humanity as the dominant power, or you can follow the example of Gorthik and his fleet. Commander Vrex of the Draconis Empire, a species known for their pride and aggression, spoke first. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't use this technology to conquer us all? Dr. Park answered, the same guarantee you gave humanity. When you thought we were weak, none. You'll have to trust that we're more honorable than you proved to be. The negotiations continued for hours. One by one, the alien species accepted humanity's terms. They had no choice. Faced with technology they couldn't understand or defeat, submission was their only option for survival. The Treaty of New Terra was signed by representatives of 43 different species. It established humanity as the dominant power in the galaxy, with authority over interstellar law, territorial disputes, and military conflicts. As the alien fleets departed, carrying news of humanity's emergence across the galaxy, President Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Leviathan and looked out at the stars. The species that had mocked humanity now watched them with fear and respect. Dr. Park, she said, you mentioned that the seventh realm contains 7 more dimensional layers. What else might we find there? Dr. Park smiled. Technologies that will make what we've shown today look primitive. Energy sources that could power entire galaxies. Weapons that could reshape reality itself. Rodriguez nodded. Humanity's emergence from hiding wasn't the end of their development. It was just the beginning. The galaxy that had dismissed them as inferior was about to learn that they had awakened something that would change the universe forever. In the depths of space, human ships patrolled their new empire, guardians of a species that had proven the most dangerous lesson in the galaxy. Never underestimate the quiet ones, because they might be planning something extraordinary.